I do think there's other types of galactic beings that come from other locations that we can interact with. We can connect up to the sky and communicate with them. They're not all nice in my experience, but most of them are actually just kind of curious about us and what we're doing. I think the ones that are future humans that are interacting with Earth now, I think we're going to see more and more sightings and have more interactions with them, us, because they know what we're up against right now. And I think, oh, I have chills coming through my body as I'm about to say this.
Still have questions? Well, join me live for Wake Up Wednesdays at 5 p.m. Pacific, 6 p.m. Mountain, 7 p.m. Central, and 8 p.m. Eastern. I'll answer your questions, and you might see a familiar face. Together, we're waking up the collective. Thank you for watching. My guest today is Dallisa Hocking, who is not only a top rated psychic, but she has some techniques that she's going to share today that will help you make your life better because 2026 is the year of the identity crisis. And when I looked up Dalisa's interviews, the most popular thing that people rewound and wanted to listen to over and over again is her information about how galactic beings are going to be revealing themselves. So we are going to definitely dive into that. So Delisa, welcome. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Lori, how much fun are we going to have with this conversation? We're going to go in so many different directions. I can feel it
I,
already.
Me too. I love it. So I'm really super curious because I heard you say something that really made me stop in my tracks, which was I am excellent at predicting things that are going to happen. But as I've been doing this for so many years and integrating this, I've realized that there's a bigger value in being in the present moment than there is in being in the future. And that really made me stop because on the other side, my experience has been that there is only one ever present moment. That's the state of eternity that we are in. So I would really love for you to elaborate on that because I think that this is one of the most important points I've heard lately.
Oh my gosh, I have full body chills as you bring that up.
Whoa.
I never thought I would stop doing predictions. I've been making them for over a decade. And I still will get downloads, I'm a psychic medium. I'm fifth generation. Like, of course I'm gonna get downloads. Uh, but oh gosh, it's probably a couple months ago now. I was sitting at home, and over the course of the weekend, I was getting a wave after wave after wave of this download from spirit that was like, you're done. Like, you're done with this phase of making all of these big predictions, and we need you. It felt like desperation almost. I know spirit's not desperate in that way, but it felt like this, like, Delisa, you have to do this and you have to do this now. It felt very urgent, I guess is the word I would use. Where then they said, now we need you to go into the activation phase. We need you to be in this space where you are helping people in the present moment, because they made it known to me that weekend through these downloads that the predictions were actually creating like this fear and this disempowerment with individuals that were watching it. And even as I say that, psychically, I'm seeing in my mind's eye right now as a clairvoyant that when I would make these predictions, that like the energy of the people consuming them would almost be like in that container where they heard that prediction rather than being in the present moment. It's almost like a soul fragment or a piece of their energy was left there with me stating those predictions out loud. So with the activation phase, they've said, okay, now it's about reminding them that their power is in the present moment. They have the power within them now and always have, had this within them. And it's less and less now about seeking outside of yourself for the information, for the validation, for the permission. Because I think a lot of people are afraid right now. And I think they're looking for things that help them to feel like they have more control. And I think going into predictions, whether it's a psychic, a card reader, astrologer, you name it, going into that predictive energy, I think was helping people feel a little bit more calm in some ways, because at least they felt like, okay, I know what's coming because this person is telling me what's coming. But in reality, that dopamine hit probably only lasted a short time. And then they're back into their day-to-day life. They're feeling that fear again. And they're wondering, well, what the heck should I do now? Because I want the prediction, but yet I still feel the fear. And so people are getting caught in kind of that in between state. And so activation, I love that word that they used, but it's more about you don't need to be in the future trying to figure out what's going to unfold for you or the world. And frankly, if you are stuck in the past and ruminating over everything that's happened in your life, you're kind of missing what's happening in this magical space of the present moment. So I'm so glad you brought that up because I've gotten a little bit of pushback about it, I'll be honest, especially from people that have been really used to hearing all of my big predictions that I would make. I've even gotten some people that have been angry with me about, like, almost this feeling of abandonment, like I've left them and I'm not making these predictions and now they don't know what to do. I mean, I know that isn't true. We see all of the content on social media. So there's no shortage of content. And frankly, I think a lot of people are saying the same things when it comes to the predictions of the future. So I would like to encourage people to lead with more curiosity and to actually sit with themselves more and go deeper within themselves, because every answer they are looking for, they already have within them.
Wow. All right. I know where I want to go with this because this is something I think that is near and dear to this channel's heart, as some predictions have been made on the channel and they didn't come to fruition. And I've always been really cautious, I'll use that word very intentionally, of timelines that are given, because two things. Number one, time is not the same on the other side. It doesn't exist like this here, it exists like this. And I've always said that when people are on the other side, to them, it feels like they saw us yesterday and they're going to see us tomorrow. We're here for like another 20 or 30 years without them. So, based on that time constraint, there are two things I think that are in play when predictions happen when a time is involved. Number one, what I just described, but also number two, sometimes it's true at that exact moment that it's said, but we're collective and we're constantly ebbing, flowing, changing, integrating, overcoming. So I would love for you to speak about this part of it because you've been doing this for a long time with that time constraint issue.
Timing is funky. I've always kind of felt that way doing this work. And sometimes when people would put me on the spot with, well, when is it going to happen? I normally would say, well, this is what it's projecting at right now. This is what it looks like as I look at the energy in this moment. But it can change and it does change. And timing can sometimes be exact and it just drops in and you know it, but other times it moves. So I think it's because of on earth, I believe we have free will and there are things that are fated and destined. And so I think as we move through destiny points, we have free will on how we're going to move through those points. Well, each step that we take, it impacts the people, the relationships around us, the things that are happening in our life. And so that free will makes the timing move. Now, if it's something that is being predicted that maybe be in the fate of a country or the fate of the world, then that timing might be a little bit more specific. But I even think about predictions that are being made now for 2026 and beyond. I'm not hearing a whole lot from people on what they're getting for timing. So it almost feels like many people have kind of backed away in this industry of like saying this is exactly when it's going to happen. And I can speak to when I channel and I still ask questions about the world and what's coming. just to get a sense of where the energy is moving, not out of fear. But I've noticed that the imprint of timing can get really hazy, really fuzzy. And even if I were to look at, let's say, a war in a specific country and I want to see when it's going to end, I will get a feeling if it's closer or further away. But sometimes I'll look at a specific question and want insight on it. And clairvoyantly, it'll look like a scrambled picture, almost like you put on a TV that has the popcorn on it. That's what it feels like. So, I don't think we are supposed to know everything in advance. I don't think we're meant to know exactly how and when. I think it's part of this lesson of bringing ourselves back to the present moment.
I agree. And you did mention something though, destiny points. So, although you're not making predictions, you do feel that there are some destiny points. So, will you explain a little bit more about what you mean by them? And then, are there some destiny points that you're aware of for the next maybe 2 years? We're filming this in the beginning of 2026.
Yeah, so we each have our own destiny points in our own life, and then we have them also in the collective and this dimension that we're all living in together. So, if anyone watching, listening that's interested in their own destiny points, I think one of the greatest, easiest ways to do that is to practice guided meditation and journaling. And I know I get a lot of pushback saying, like, oh, yeah, meditate, do guided meditations. Oh, I don't have time for that. My brain won't shut off. It gets easier. So I would just say start with a couple of minutes each day and meditate first, and then write down on a piece of paper at the top. I call it my spirit team. It's my angels, guides, and ancestors. Spirit team, what do I need to know today? And just get in the practice of bringing information through and writing down whatever you see, whatever you feel, whatever drops into your knowingness. And that will build more of that muscle between you and them. And you will start to feel more of the indications of where your life is headed. And you'll start to feel those more in advance. So you'll get a sense of those destiny points that I believe you pre planned before you ever came down into this incarnation. So when we look at it from a collective standpoint and everything that's happening in the world, Spirit has referred to this period of time as the dismantling. And they've said it's not just one thing that's going to happen, but it is a series of events and series of things that will be dissolved and some things that will end up being rebuilt or built from scratch. They've showed it to me in my mind's eye like a stacking where it's just all these things that stack on top of us right now. But they're very mindful to not want to bring people into that space of fear, but instead just know it's probably going to feel and look like it's coming from all different directions. And any system that we are tapped into, whether it's healthcare, education, real estate, our jobs, all of it is going to be shifting over these next several years. I've been shown that it actually takes us into the early 2030s where we're going to be going through this massive time of upheaval. But spirits also made it very clear that even though everything around us will be changing and we won't be able to recognize our own life anymore and how it used to be, there's going to be great opportunity for the individual. And that it's not going to come in the same way in our individual lives as we are seeing, let's say, in mainstream media and what is being reported. So we have incredible energy that's coming into each of us individually to actually raise our frequency even more. So I do think over the next 2 years, we are going to have more access to higher consciousness. I think we're going to be using telepathy more and more between individuals. So the way that we communicate feels like it's even changing. You know, a lot of us will think of someone and then they call us that day. And that's pretty normal in our day to day life. But this feels like it takes telepathy up several more notches where we will be able to meet in more astral spaces to have conversations with each other. So I think that's really good news. I also think in the next 2 years, we're going to see incredible advancements with the way that we diagnose different ailments and diseases and what technology we will have to actually repair the body. We hear a lot of people talk about med beds. The way that they've showed it to me is that we will have devices, personal devices in our home. And it appears to me, and it's like playing Pictionary with spirit, trying to interpret what they're showing me. But it appears to be the use of frequency to actually heal the body. So they've said it's sound and light. And there's going to be different ways to use those frequencies to heal the body and bring that through. So those are a couple of good things coming. But before I go on to the other pieces, what do you think about those?
I laughed out loud. You were on single camera, and I tried to stifle myself when you said the technology was going in the way of frequency and light. I have been talking for probably 3 years on this channel about all of the healing in the future will be sound, which is sound, light, and frequency. And I've had John Stewart Reed on, who created the Simoscope and had this spontaneous healing in 1982 in the Great Pyramid as he was conducting a sound experiment that healed his back because of the resonance of that chamber. And having been in that chamber personally, I understand how that could have happened. I would love for you to elaborate on this because all the time in the comments, I hear people saying that they are suffering from different ailments, different pain. They need healing. They're looking for new options. And I recognize you're not selling anything here, but you're seeing things. And even if it's not right at this moment in 2026, it's coming. And you mentioned that the 2030s, you're going to see different upheavals in the way everything is done. And that reminds me of the singularity that Ray Kurzweil has been talking about 2032 for like 25 years. Like these things all check the box and confirm one another, all of these
Yeah.
different areas.
I think we're all I shouldn't say we all, but I know that those of us that are willing to receive messages and we have our frequency high enough, it does not surprise me that many of us would get some of the same downloads because spirit's trying to get the message out, especially for the things that are really good. Because the last thing we want is people exiting off of Earth and saying, I'm done, I'm never going back, and then figuring out what incarnation is next. But yeah, so I would be on the lookout for anything that comes out on the market. I don't know if it'll be mainstream. It almost feels psychically like it's some kind of off to the side. Somebody mentions, like, oh, I've been using this device. So pay attention to like friends and networks that are talking about different things that they're using that maybe even mainstream doesn't have on the TV or in the newspaper. But I would be specifically looking for devices that you can basically plug into that will send a wave through your body. And the way they've showed it to me is like the way that the wave is, I don't know, maybe use the word programmed, but the frequency of the wave, it's like it dissolves anything of a lower frequency that it touches as it moves through the body. But I would also be on the lookout for anything that is different lights for different ailments. And this too feels like something we're going to end up having at home because they show it to me like this like row of lights that basically you can put over the body to help regenerate it. And I know that there are like red light therapy and stuff that people use right now, but this feels like different programmed colored lights. But yeah, those two things are going to be really important, I feel like, and integrated into how the body is going to heal moving forward. The other thing I want to add to this, when I channeled on this before, Spirit was very clear to say, we will be able to heal the physical body. We will have new diagnostic tools that are not available in this moment, and we'll be able to diagnose things very easily. I also think there'll be diagnostic tools we will have within our own hands that we will be able to use. But they've said that even with the healing of the body, there is also still the component of the emotional healing that will not go away. So they've said you can heal it, which is amazing. But if the ailment itself had started with some kind of emotional root or emotional trauma, that you would not be able to bypass that part, that you would still need to heal the emotional part because of the tie between emotions and the body. And so healing one doesn't mean the other one just automatically heals. Does that make sense?
It makes so much sense. And I want to comment on the technology, but because you said emotional healing, I cannot skip where we are right at this moment because I know a lot of people are looking for emotional healing. And I promised everybody in your intro that you had some really unique techniques. And I would love for you to share your the three lessons that you learned from your spiritual teacher long ago that you've implemented because this is brilliant. I love this so much.
When she gave this to me, it completely changed my entire life. And I mean that in all seriousness, because, in my earlier years, I really felt trapped by emotions. I felt like I was at the mercy of whatever I was going to feel that day. And if somebody was going to do something that I didn't like or I felt was against me, then my emotions would, flare up. And I think a lot of people can relate to that. And so when I was working with this mentor, she said, okay, well, think about it like this. Be curious about your emotions. Be curious when you're feeling something and lean into it a bit more to discover what's at the root of it. Because if you discover the root, just even by acknowledging it or talking to it, the root energy that comes up, it actually starts to dissolve it. It starts to feel heard, and then it doesn't feel like it has to speak up as much or as often. So, the three core energies that I'm about to talk about, I feel has really neutralized the emotions that I bring through my body. So, for example, I don't feel myself going from 0 to 60 like I would have in my earlier years. And when I feel something that's negative, like anger, shame, guilt, I actually get in a weird way kind of excited about it because I know there's treasure in there, right? So, here it is. When you're feeling something, I want you to lean in and ask which of the one, two, or all three of these core energies is at the root of it. So the first energy is approval. Like there's something about what's going on that doesn't make me feel good, or I don't feel worthy. I don't feel lovable. So I'm upset. So approval is energy number one. Energy number two is safety. Like there's something about what's going on that I don't feel safe about, either in the space or in my body. So safety is number two. Number three is the energy of control. There's something about this that feels like I am not in control or out of control, and I don't like how it makes me feel. I have yet to find a time where I felt upset about something and asked the question approval, safety, or control where I couldn't tie it back. Every single time it goes back to one, two, or all three of those. And so then, for everybody listening, that's like, well, I can think about something that I'm upset about right now, or I was upset about recently, and I can tie it to, let's say, approval and control. Okay. So then lean into it a little bit more. You can write it out, you can journal about it. But what is it about this that is tied to approval? Where does the need for approval come up for me in my life? Where did I feel like I had to prove myself? Where did I feel like so and so didn't think I was good enough? Right. And so journaling about that and getting that out and getting curious and interacting with it and giving it to yourself. So positive affirmations, let's say, about I am worthy, I am lovable, like giving whatever it is that you've identified out of approval, safety, and control, giving it back to yourself. So giving your self love and approval back to yourself, being your own best friend, continuing to build that relationship with yourself. Control, the anecdote to that one is if you feel like control is coming up in the situation you're thinking about, is You close your eyes and think about a time where you actually felt like you were in flow, that your life was just working out for you. So maybe it's a memory that you think about where you're sitting in your living room and you've got loved ones near you, or you've got your cat or your dog. And so you just feel like everything's just going right. So that's how you interact with the energy of control is you bring yourself back into a flow memory, a flow state. And you can also journal about control and where that comes up for you because a lot of people really align closely with control. And we know that control is an illusion, but your relationship to control. By having control, I feel like my life is fill in the blank because you probably are identifying with control and wanting more control because it probably helps you feel a little bit better or safer in your life. And just acknowledging and remembering that we're not in control and the universe always has our back. And maybe that's an affirmation you use if you're really working through the energy of control. And just for the third one there was safety. Safety, I like to the anecdote with this one is just give myself more affirmations around I am safe. It is safe to be me. It is safe to speak up. It is safe to be heard. It is safe to be seen. All of those because safety may be an energy that comes up for somebody or they feel like they can't be who they want to be or in the past they felt like they had to hide or they couldn't be seen or heard because of what the results or repercussions of that would be. So those are the three core energies: approval, safety, and control. And just like I said, just by acknowledging what they are and having a conversation and curiosity with them, they really start to subside. And my bet is you will have less and less emotional outbursts or feeling like the emotions are taking over all of you when you're doing this work because you're noticing what's at the core. And when you notice what's at the core, it doesn't have the same hold over you anymore.
Wow. So incredibly helpful. I hope people replay this section over and over again because there are so many easy to implement just because you are aware of it. I love this. So, we talked about the emotional health and well being. We brushed upon technology that's going to help the body. Do you ever get your spirit guides talking about ways that we can heal ourselves without an outside force?
Yeah, a lot of it actually ties back to the emotional state and what we believe because our thoughts become what we are and what we live in and the state that we're in. So yeah, outside of the devices they've showed me with sound and vibration and lights, we have everything we need inside of ourselves, but it takes the awareness and it takes the almost like giving ourselves radical permission to go within and to do the emotional healing that actually will unlock a lot of it naturally inside of our bodies because I believe that if we heal the emotional state, we then help the body to repair and heal itself. And so everything is already within the container, right? So a lot of people though, I will get pushback and say like, "Oh, well, I'd rather just go and like buy the machine that I can plug into." And I think that's probably why spirit channeled in and said, "You can't bypass the emotional part." Because I think it's a lot easier, especially in the world that we live in today, to go and buy the quick thing or buy the easy fix. Going inside of ourselves and dealing with all of the things that we have packed around in this incarnation and maybe even things we are still healing from other incarnations, that takes like real work to sit there and do that. But it doesn't have to be scary and it doesn't have to be hard. But I do think there has to be a willingness to say, I'm gonna look at this. I'm gonna call it to the surface. And there are all kinds of books out there that you can buy, or anybody that uses something like ChatGPT, you can go on and buy books or get prompts for specific questions for what you've been through in life. Because if we start asking ourselves the right set of questions and we're ready, we can drudge up all kinds of things that will come up and out of the body. And I think that when we do that work, we quite literally release that frequency of the old out of the body. And then we create a whole new paradigm in the physical body. But I keep seeing this psychically as we're talking. The book "You Can Heal Your Life" by Louise Hay. I'm sure a lot of your audience has read it. There's another one. I think it's called "The Body Keeps Score," and I've had friends talk about that one. But they discuss and talk about how the body holds on to the memory of this energy and how that can manifest. And so I would say start within yourself, journaling and guided meditations. For guided meditations, I personally love the Insight Timer app. I love it. I'm on it every single night. And they have many, many free meditations on there. But I would go on there and just search like guided meditation for the heart chakra, guided meditation for the throat chakra. Why am I selecting the heart and the throat? Because the heart guided meditations are going to help you to work through the emotions and the things that are coming up to the surface. This isn't going to be a one and done where you got a little bit of insight and you're like, this is it. And you can, keep going. I've learned that emotional healing usually comes up as an onion, like one layer and then another layer. So I would recommend doing guided meditations for the heart chakra, maybe once a week to start off, 10 to 20 minutes, and just see how that one feels. You can always switch to a different meditation and try different teachers. The other one, guided meditation for the throat chakra, I think that one is really important because I've just seen over and over again there are a lot of people that are afraid to speak up or a lot of people to be seen. I see a lot of people that come across my pathway that are spiritual students and they are either new practitioners or they're trying to build a business as a spiritual healer. And many of them say, "Oh, I don't want to go on social media. I don't want to talk about this publicly." And doing a guided meditation for the throat chakra can help open that up so that you feel more safe and secure and confident sharing what it is that you were born with because you are unique and you are meant to share the information and wisdom that you not only have from this incarnation, but from other ones. And you're being asked to step forward and share that. And so that throat chakra meditation can help you do that. But guided meditation is low hanging fruit and everybody can do it and it's free. And not only will it help you heal yourself emotionally, but it can also help you to deepen your connection to your own intuition because we all have these abilities. And frankly, meditation was one of the fastest ways I got to develop my own gifts over the years. And it helps to attune your frequency into a higher frequency. And from there, you can start pulling in more of the intuitive hunches that I think help all of us live an easier life.
So much there. So I want to go back to, I want to marry a couple of different thoughts that you have come up during your discussions. First of all, you said that our thoughts create our reality, which is so incredibly true. And because you said that, I want to brush back to the telepathy. So, Spirit has said that this is going to come online. I have called telepathy the 4-minute mile of spirituality. If you get what that means, because we have the telepathy tapes where all of these nonverbal autistic kids across the world proved evidentially that they were communicating telepathically with parents, with siblings. There was one kid who never read any Harry Potter books, couldn't read, didn't watch any of the movies, but his sister read them all. You could ask him any question, and on a speller, he could answer them because he read them through her eyes. But you said that we're going to go places with them, and these telepathic, autistic, nonverbal kids are going to a place they call the Hill, where they are experts in these different areas. They converge with all kinds of people who speak different languages, yet universally they're speaking an emotion, and in ways that we don't understand. And the reason I'm bringing this up and marrying these two things with thoughts and telepathy is because if we're going to start to become telepathic, I think we're going to need to clean up our thoughts. And I love that you just an emotional well-being 3-part checklist of approval, safety, and control for evaluating what's coming up for you, because I think this is a wonderful starting point to begin to clear up our thoughts. Because if you don't start doing it now, telepathy is going to be upon us. Would you want somebody to see, to visualize, to receive your private thoughts that you really wouldn't want anybody to hear? And if we don't start cleaning this up now, I think a lot of people are going to be caught off guard when this happens, because it's not just the autistic nonverbal kids and early, young adults that are doing this. It is people who are caregivers to people with dementia and all kinds of other illnesses that have taken the throat shot out of the picture because they don't have a voice box to be able to communicate. So I'd love for you to speak about this, because I think it's going to be something that's going to be touching us sooner than later.
I agree. I think the gap between our thoughts and telepathy and what other people receive from us is like getting shorter and shorter. It's almost like a whole new level of a lie detector, because I really feel, based on these channelings that I've done, that the space that we're headed into, that even if you are standing in a physical space with someone and you say something to them, that person's going to know the actual truth of it. And they're going to know if you're not being honest, more so than even today. And I know many of us are energy sensitives and we already know when someone's trying to pull something. But this is like no filter. Kind of think of it as like the veil is already thinning and it's going to get like very, very thin to non existent during some times. So I love what you just said about getting clearer about our thoughts and almost like clearing out the debris that's in our minds or in our energy field. Because I think there's a lot of things that many of us will say in a day, in a week, that we would not want anyone else hearing. And it feels like we're going in this direction, though, where almost like our thoughts are not private anymore. And so that'll be an interesting thing to have to work through. I think in one way, it could be incredibly liberating because nobody has anything to hide then, and you know exactly what you're working with. But I think for a lot of people, it could cause a lot of emotional turmoil inside of them, because if everything becomes public or there's no wall between you and someone else, and they haven't done any of the emotional healing work or thought about emotional healing work, that could create chaos inside of them. And
It,
so, oh, yeah, I was just going to say, and so I feel like we're hearing this now before it happens big time. I think we should all like take this into consideration so that we're not caught so much off guard when all of this starts accelerating at a really rapid pace.
yeah, I was just going to go back to what you said about 2026 being an identity crisis. Like, talk about having to level up and bring your best self to this game. We're going to have to do that. I want to share, because you shared the emotional healing, that 3-part. I've only talked about this on the show a couple of times, and I just feel like it's so relevant to our discussion today as we're talking about cleaning up thoughts and different devices that we can use to help us on this journey. I got a download when I was in the shower in 2013. And it was something that was downloaded to me, and I called it the Tic Tac Challenge. And it was all around thoughts. I knew in 2013 that there was going to be something big around thoughts. I painted a painting about this. My very first video on my channel in 2019 is about this. It's terrible. I memorized the whole thing. I didn't know how to edit. I did it all in one 20-minute take. I spoke for 20 minutes. I practiced it over and over again because I didn't know about editing. And it's all about this tic tac challenge. I've understood over time it's not this simple, but for what we're talking about, it's the perfect thing that would work. So the idea is as you're going through your day, you have these different thoughts and you know that you need to clean them up in some way, but you have to become aware of them before you can change them or do something with them. Go to the store and buy a box of Tic Tacs. They come in like 15 flavors. There's enough of them to give you the idea. And every time you have one of these thoughts, take it out of your pocket, out of your purse. They're super teeny tiny. They'll fit in small places and you eat one. Like the worst thing that's going to happen is your box is empty at the end of the day. It's 120 calories and you have super fresh breath. Like that's the worst that's going to happen. But the best thing that's going to happen is now you have an awareness. And once you have the awareness, you can't put it back. But I do believe it is more than just saying, I want to change your thoughts. I used to think that that was easy for people, but I learned over time that our body actually releases chemicals like dopamine to keep us in those thought patterns that we've been feeding ourselves for 5, 10, 15, 20 years. So sometimes it's not that easy. You have to actually change your perception about what you believe. And this is where you come in because your evaluation, when something emotionally triggers you, of is this approval, safety, or control, is the way to change the perception because now you have a real tool. I think this is like a double whammy if people were to really use it.
Oh, I think it would completely change their life and how they move in and between relationships with people of all kinds, because once you see it, you can't unsee it. It's like the spiritual awakening. Like once you see it's happening, you can't shut the light back off. So, yeah, once you start working with approval, safety, and control, I love the Tic Tac example and working with that. And I think the two together really create this beautiful synergy.
Gosh darn
Um,
it. I wish they'd just sponsor me on my channel.
you just put it out into the universe, so you never know. Somebody could be listening. Yeah. But yeah, I think this is about, liberating yourself and just giving yourself that radical permission to get curious and look within. But I would say to them, to anyone listening that wants to try the Tic Tacs and try the approval, safety, and control, it's probably going to change all of your relationships. But I think ultimately it changes them for the good. And I think you feel more peace within your own mind, body, and spirit, and you feel like you can be in the present moment because you're not feeling the emotional tug of the past always kind of coming back to haunt you or to ask for attention. And it doesn't pull you so much into the future because you just feel emotionally secure and peaceful in your body now, that that when you're working through your emotions that you can get through anything, and you start to really remember and recognize like how resilient you actually are. And I think you just get less and less interested about what the future is going to bring because you know from the depths of your soul that whatever it is, you're going to get through it and you're going to be better for it.
Yeah, I want to add one more piece to it. And I'd love for you to weigh in on this. This is something that I've been integrating over the last maybe year to year and a half. And that is when you get to a certain point where you've done a lot of this work, things will still trigger you because we're human having a human experience. But when you can apply this wrapper around any issue, which is, what if this is all happening for me and not to me? It really changes how you look at everything and how you react to things. So I'd love for you or spirit to weigh in on this because I think that this is like the biggest gold nugget of all.
Yeah, one of my favorite quotes is from the poet Rumi. And the quote is, live life as if everything is rigged in your favor. And
Hmm.
noticing that everything that happens and everything that comes along your pathway is meant to be there. And by doing this work, I think you get less and less emotional in a way, but not in a bad way, but you just feel more balanced. But I have noticed that some people really may identify or get help learning about victim triangles, drama triangles. There's a book that absolutely changed my life, and it's called The Power of Ted, like the name Ted, The Power of Ted by David Emerald, like the color or gemstone. And this book is about, it's very short, but it talks about the 3 points of the drama triangle. One is the person who plays the part of the rescuer. One point is the person who's the victim energy or plays the victim. You know, life is always against me. Everything always goes wrong. And then the third point is the villain, persecutor kind of energy. So I've noticed in doing this work with healing emotions that at least for me and a lot of what I see in other people, especially those that are healers, is they take on the role of being a rescuer and then they end up attracting in a lot of people around them in all different kinds of relationships and situations where those people are the victim energy. And so the healer, the rescuer is thinking they're helping the victim energy. And what it ends up doing in actuality is it just kind of keeps both of them in those roles and just they keep going back and forth and back and forth. And I just felt compelled to bring this to the conversation today because I think there's going to be people listening that go, "Oh my God, I never thought about myself as a rescuer. And I never thought about how I may attract these people in that always have something wrong or always need my help and they're always draining my battery." Because the book then goes into the latter section of the book and how to shift out of it. And one of the things I took away from that book that we've been talking about, you know, for most of this conversation is the power of questions and shifting out of being the rescuer that fixes everything and instead embodying more of a role where when the victim energy comes to you and says, I need this, oh my gosh, my life's falling apart, that you become more of a coach where you can ask the right questions at the right time and get that victim energy person to come to their own realizations, come to their own solutions so that you're not trapped in this axis between the rescuer and the victim energy. And instead, you become more empowered and you give them an opportunity to solve their own problems.
Since you used the word trapped, and earlier you said people get to the point where they've had an experience and they're like, I'm done with this earth and I never want to come back. And this has come up a little bit in a couple of interviews on my channel. I would love for you to speak to the prison planet theory.
I have not heard many people talk about it, but I've heard it in passing. I think Earth, in my interpretation of it, is like one of the most advanced classrooms you can come to.
Totally.
It's not here for rainbows and butterflies 24/7. Like that's not where we're at. But I also feel, and I have chills coming up my body as we're talking about this. So I treat those as exclamation points that it's something important that spirit wants us to pay attention to. So I do think that we all go through our own unique sets of challenges and roadblocks while we're here, but we chose to come here because of that. We wanted to be here so that we could have these fated events and have these soulmate contracts that are not always so peachy keen and work through that because we knew that by coming here to this incredibly difficult place that we would accelerate our own growth far greater than other places I think that we can incarnate to or other dimensions we can go to. This one is like kind of they're saying in my ears psychically the holy grail. Like we come here almost in a way it feels like our soul enters saying I'm a warrior. I'm going to do this. I'm going to battle this out like I've got this. And we get here and we have this veil of amnesia and we're like, "Wait, what? Why did I come here?" So, I think it's more of that for me, and I think it feels more psychically like people that are not awakened yet they may feel like they are in a prison, because if you are not awake and you don't know all these layers to spirituality and consciousness and energy, you probably feel most days that it's a prison. But people that are awake and they are doing the work and they are investigating and being curious, I think most of them would see this as a planet of soul acceleration. So I like to think of it as just a very advanced classroom. I believe that I chose to come here with a very specific mission of bringing visibility to this. We all came here with something, but I think it's time that many people that are not awake, my hope is that they really start to wake up to why they came here, and that it was a choice, and that they have their own unique energy fingerprint to bring into all of this. And I'd love to welcome them into the community of the awakened, because the flip side of that, especially over these next several years, if you're not awakened and you're not doing the work, I think it's going to get exponentially more difficult, because it's going to feel like the prison is getting darker and smaller. And yeah, I wouldn't want to be in that energy, but that's where free will comes in and choice. And so they'll either decide to, wander into spirituality and start asking some questions about the universe and what the heck's going on, or they'll stay where they're at. But I think either way, we all go back home to the other side after this. We take a look at, all of the lifetimes and what we've learned and not learned, and what we aced and what we failed on in some ways. And then we design what it is we're going to do next. Like, this is just a continuation, but Earth is no joke. I'll say that.
I'm a second that. I love though this kind of a conversation because it is about empowerment and waking up. And since you mentioned that, the whole reason I started this channel is because I wanted people to wake up to the power of their soul. So I would love for you to speak a little bit about this massive change. The earth is moving from a 3D to a 5D reality. And I would love to hear what your spirit team is saying about this and what's coming and what we will expect.
They've shown me a couple of different things which might sound very strange when I say them together. It looks to me like there is some kind of frequency split, but I don't feel like half of us go to one planet and half of us go to another planet. It just feels like a frequency differentiator. Okay. So they've shown me that there is some people that will decide they don't want to be a part of the modern day systems anymore. So that we will see more and more people that will go and build a tiny home village, or an earthship home, or just creating their own micro communities and really staying outside of any of the main systems. So don't be surprised if we start hearing more and more people that are like, I'm quitting my job. I'm going to go live off the grid. Like, Spirit has shown there's just this whole section of people that are going to want to do that and will do that. So, and some people will hear that right now and go, count me in. Like, where do I buy my tiny house? And then, because I love tiny houses. Okay. So then there's this other frequency. And the other frequency they've showed actually feels more connected to robotics and AI and this technology of AI that we've had all along, Spirit has shown me. It's just that it's reemerging now. It's almost like we've dusted off the plates and we're like, wow, here's AI. We didn't discover it. Like, this was here long, long ago. Um, but this other society feels much more like the Jetsons and where that is heading. But I still feel like they both still live and operate on Earth, but it doesn't feel like the two frequencies really overlap that much. So the one group doesn't really have relationships or communication with the other group. It's few and far between. It's not impossible, I've been shown, but there's just a widening of the gap between the two. So,
So half of us are going back to being Amish, I guess.
yeah, and I don't hate that idea. I don't really know which way I feel like. I'm going to go, I feel like a life that feels simpler and Spirit has said more bartering for goods and services, like being outside of a robust digital currency system, like that simple life in a lot of ways feels really nice. I think a lot of people will be hungry for that. My hunch psychically is that more of the awakened will lean more towards the simpler, off-grid kind of lifestyle, and it feels more like, those that have not been awakened feel more interested in the Jetsons' future. But I've been told each and every person will have a choice, but it does feel like as the next few years go by, we'll be kind of even if it's consciously or unconsciously choosing which way we're going based on when each of these new systems is dismantling or new things are coming into the horizon on mainstream media by what we are choosing to focus our time and energy on, we will be making a decision for our own future.
So interesting. What an interesting concept and conversation we're having right here because I, like you, feel very torn in this. So there's a part of me that has a little teeny tiny cabin in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan, land. Like all I do is hike and kayak and do these little projects around my cabin. And I pretty much hardly talk to anybody when I'm up there for the summer. And then there's the part of me who works for a corporation that sells AI, that uses AI technology to help me do this channel, who is interested in anti-aging, who is an expert in red light therapy. I'm sure most people on the channel don't know that. I actually had a channel for a small time because I worked for a red light therapy company as their VP of business development. I know more about that technology. So when you brought that up, I was like, I know a lot about that, but you're right. It's not advanced enough because it's just working on the ATP in the mitochondria, but there's more that's coming. I know that. So I'm really torn because there's a part of me that is so country with my little herb gardens. And then there's other part of me that just wants to know things. But I do feel very strongly, at least at this point in time, I would never augment my consciousness because I've been on the other side enough to know that we will gain abilities that are probably better. I'm going to say better, even though because we are in a good, better, best on this earth. On the other side, that doesn't exist. But here, I think that there is a little bit of that good, better, best of if we augment too quickly before we really understand it, that it may not be for the highest and greatest good of your experience.
Yeah, I think the ramifications of what we are living through and what we're going to see transcends just this incarnation. So, yeah,
Say that
I,
again. Seriously, say that again and let
if
that
I can
sink in.
remember, sometimes it just channeled through when I'm speaking. So,
You said the ramifications are going to live beyond just this incarnation.
yes. Yes. When I am asked questions, a lot of it's channeled through and I don't remember it immediately after. So
I've told
yeah.
you I'm hyper listening to you. Not kidding. Okay, I want to go into. I looked at a couple of your videos, and one of the things I love to look at is what do people replay the most in these videos? What are they most interested in? And for you, over and over again, it was disclosure about these galactic beings. And we've had several conversations on this channel. I have had many channelers on connecting to these galactic beings and entities. Please do tell more.
I think they're here. They've been here. I think some of them are us in the future.
Oh my gosh. I feel like you're taught. There's a show I've been watching on Netflix, and now, of course, I'm thinking about it. I can't say the name of it, but it's all about this pond that people go into and go to these different time frames, and then they see themselves in the time frame from the another point in time. And so of course, if that's like the technology that we discover, that could definitely be happening. How crazy is that?
Yeah, so I think some of what people are seeing these days are humans that have time traveled, like, from the future. So, I know that that can sound, like, really, really wild, but I think that it's us in some instances. I do think there's other types of galactic beings that come from other locations that we can interact with. We can connect up to the sky and communicate with them, and just like humans, they're not all nice in my experience, but most of them are actually just kind of curious about us and what we're doing. I think the ones that are future humans that are interacting with Earth now, I think we're going to see more and more sightings and have more interactions with them, us, because they know what we're up against right now. And I think, oh, I have chills coming through my body as I'm about to say this, that we're at a choice point.
Mm.
And they know that. And so I feel like they're coming back into our awareness to try to wake us up, try to get us to think about things larger than ourselves, try to get us out of the day-to-day rut that we may find ourselves in and really see energy and consciousness in the universe as, you know, the living, breathing thing that it is, rather than just what's going right or wrong in my life today. So I think we are going to have more sightings, but I don't feel scared about those sightings. I do think we are on the verge of a real disclosure in terms of, like, having, whether our president gets to it first or another world leader. I do think there's going to be a world leader that comes to the podium and makes the formal announcement
Around
about
what? Around what?
around the galactic beings are real, that they've been here, they're here right now, they're
Do
among
you
us.
do you know? I mean, I don't watch any news, but somebody told me just recently. Do you know that President Obama said that he confirmed that there are ETs? I haven't seen anything about it. I just heard it through the grapevine. So who knows if it's a massive game of telephone, but I think it's real.
He admitted it on a podcast. Then I heard he kind of backpedaled.
I bet he did.
Yeah. And then I've learned through the media that Trump has asked for the files to be disclosed on galactic beings, aliens, crafts, all of that. And I have also seen in a news report that I believe it's somebody connected, like, close to his inner circle, that said that he already has a speech written to disclose. So, and I've seen it in channelings that we are going to be disclosing, but what it feels like psychically, energetically now is like, who gets there first? Who makes the announcement first? Because it does feel that when they are very public about all of it and it starts coming out and people are talking about it at work and their friend circles and everything, that there's going to be a big kind of like boom around religion, organized religion, and spirituality, consciousness, all of that. So it feels to me like in these next couple of years, there's going to be a lot about organized religion. And I don't mean to offend anyone, and I was raised Catholic, but organized religion, like, almost like truths coming out about some of these religions and where they came from, like where they
It's already
started.
coming. It's already
Yeah.
here.
And so as that, like, really starts to pick up steam, it could add another layer to kind of the civil war energy that we have in the country, in the US,
Mm.
because I think there will be people who are very, very rooted in their religious beliefs, and those that have been channeling and seeing and going to the other side being like, that's not what's really happening here. So I think there will be a lot of potential heads clashing together and fighting over this, because I do know that a lot of religions either do or feel like they're amplifying a message around galactic beings and the talk of the crafts being demonic. And that whole thing about if you believe in it, you're believing in the devil and Satan is here with you. And so I think there's like this other layer of this that's going to be coming with disclosure that maybe a lot of people aren't talking about, but I think that could infiltrate a lot of our day-to-day lives because regardless if we live in a small town or a major city, religion is everywhere. And people are going to have very differing viewpoints on what is happening, and they may want to fight you over it.
Well, it's
And
funny that you would say that because as soon as you said that, I started having kind of like this feeling. So I'm claircognizant, and it's almost like I've heard people talk. I'm not on Facebook the way that most people are on Facebook. If somebody sends me a message, sometimes I see it or I use it for selling stuff. But I do have people who have told me that they're like unfriending friends because of all this political stuff, which I don't get in the mix of it all. Oh my God, put your seatbelt on. Wait until people start coming in on a religious aspect. It's going to be 10x more divisive than what we see with political stuff, I think.
oh, for sure. And people are going to feel just like they did with the recent presidential election, like I'm right, you're wrong. I mean, we're still
Yes.
hearing that. And people
Yep.
were unfriending over and over on Facebook because somebody would say something and they didn't agree with it. And that just feels like the one of the first main examples of this showing up. But I think the religious warfare is going to be front and center. A lot of us healers, card readers, astrologers, I've been called the devil, I don't know how many times in the
I
last.
can't even count how many times somebody has referenced the devil on my comments. I can't even count anymore.
Yeah,
Hundreds.
so that's going to be right front and center again, for all of us to kind of sort through. But
And let's be
and
clear,
yeah.
I can tell by your comment and my comment, neither of us believe that there is a devil or a hell. Maybe an earth one, but on the other side, in my personal experience, that did not exist. What about from your spirit team?
Yeah, I have been shown that like hell as a location isn't something that somebody's like sentenced to for eternal damnation. Like that all feels like propaganda. But I have seen where somebody has crossed over and decisions that they made in their lifetime that were really, really bad, they had to still go through that
Life
life
review.
review. Yeah, the life
Yeah,
review process. And so that can feel like hell to
right.
someone that just did a bunch of horrible things while they were alive. So I think that's where that belief or frequency of hell actually comes into play on the other side. But we've all played the good, the bad, and the in between in different lifetimes. And so I'm not a believer that somebody can go to hell forever. And I know that that might trigger some people, especially if it's like, well, so and so did all these things to these kids or they were a serial whatever, and it's like, yeah, but there's
Mm-hmm.
if we think about it as like live everything like Rumi said, live everything as if life was, live life as if everything was rigged in your favor. So if you think about it from that context, even the worst of the worst of the worst, there's something in that soul contract that they came here to do and activate that ripples through the world and the people that are touched by whatever it is they did while they were here. So
Yeah.
I think everything has a blessing in it, even the worst of things that we can go through here.
Well, I'm going to go even bigger picture because when my experience is on the other side, I have become the source of everything. So there is nothing that source is not. So you name anything, it is all the same thing, veiled to come here to have an experience. So how can you cut off a part that is you? I mean, look at it like a wave. They always say drops in the ocean, by like the wave analogy better. It's like you're going across on this wave, this ocean, and then the wave comes up, becomes Delisa, Lori, anybody watching, and then dies and goes back down and becomes all of it again. There really was no you, not in that sense. in my part one trilogy analogy, like this is a 3-part movie, the Earth experience. Yeah, we're having these individual experiences and we know that's what we are, have our life review, but that's not really the whole thing. You don't really understand the whole thing until you get to trilogy number 3 and you understand more.
Yeah. It's much bigger than we all maybe think about in our day to day.
And none of us have all the answers
Yeah.
anyway. It's not going to happen. Well, I would imagine that there are a lot of people watching who would love to connect with you. You have your own YouTube channel and you do all these different things. So please tell everybody how they can work with you.
Yeah, everything's over on my website. That's at spiritandspark.com, all spelled out. And yeah, I've got some really cool things I'm launching right now that are a
Like
lot of
what?
fun. Yeah, so I have a community called the Gathering Room that is open only by season. So the spring season is opening, and then I have this other thing. It's kind of a top secret, but I'll share it. So I'm getting ready to launch because my grandmother, my dad's side, that's where I get my gifts from, and her grandmother. And my grandmother was a postmaster in a really small town in Idaho. And so she was always at the post office and running that. And then when she was be at home, she would sit in this blue chair and she would write letters and we'd sit and talk about spirituality. And so I'm starting where I'm actually going to be mailing an envelope to people that want to participate in it. And it's called From the Blue Chair. And it's officially launching
Okay.
in April. And I'm
Of
just really excited.
2026, right? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And I really kind of sat with myself recently and I'm like, what do I want my legacy to be? Like, what would I want to be remembered for after I leave here? And I want people to feel like they are remembered and that they are seen, and no matter where they live, that there's somebody that remembers that they're there. And I really feel I can do that through my grandmother's legacy of being a postmaster.
How
And so,
beautiful.
yeah, I'm really excited about that. So I've got the
Hey.
a little bit of info on the website about that, but that more coming soon. Yeah.
Okay. So I'm going to ask you this question, Delisa. In integrating all this information, all these conversations with spirit, what would you tell everybody right now that you know for sure?
Ooh. The quote also from Rumi that comes to mind as you ask that question is the wound is the place where the light enters. And I think that connects to a lot of what we talked about today is that as we go through life in this advanced school, and yeah, we're going to have some battle scars and some wounds, but it's through those experiences where the real wisdom and understanding of ourselves comes about.
Beautiful. Wow. It's Lisa. I want to thank you so much. Thank you for coming on here, for sharing these thoughts, for sharing these ideas of how people can make their life better. And I want to thank you for what you are doing to help wake up the collective. It is so needed right now.
Thank you, Lori. This has been a very memorable conversation that I won't soon forget. So thank you for having me on your show.
I just got goosebumps when you said that. And of course, this show is absolutely nothing without all of you who tune in to watch, to listen, and to share these beautiful conversations with somebody who needs it. And if you still have questions, you can join me for Wake Up Wednesday live at 5 p.m. Pacific, 6 p.m. Mountain, 7 p.m. Central, and 8 p.m. Eastern. Thank you, everybody, for watching. Do you believe that love never dies and you want to hear stories that prove it? Well, hit the subscribe button. You belong here.